People are like, why did you keep your accent the whole time? I'm like, can you imagine going in and out of that shit all the time? And I feel safe being in pain. Like when I'm there and I'm with the actor and I know the actor, I feel safe I feel safe in art. Like, and I almost think I feel safer with art than I do in life.
Yeah.
And Ridley Scott, he's the one who would run on set and be like, he would pull me out. I mean, when I did the bathtub scene when I went under, like they had to yell cut because they were like, get her out of there. But because I was fine. I can hold my breath for a long time. I'm a singer, right? But you know, like I feel protected by art. I feel like art has saved me my whole life.
What movies inspired you when you were growing up?
Everything from The Wizard of Oz
Yes.
to Goodfellas.
Yeah. Same movie, basically.
I mean,
like it sort of is,
starring
you know?
Ray Liotta. Goodfellas was a very important part of my life growing up because of my family and being an Italian American and also all the Godfathers. Scorsese is just the best ever. Also Donnie Darko, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like,
The Wizard of Oz,
I don't want to lie. I don't want to lie to you and tell you I haven't seen it so many times.
Really?
Yeah, so many times.
Okay,
it's like in the world of music and also in fashion as well. Like Donnie Darko, it's religion. It really is. I don't mean to be illustrative. Like it really is. It's like a religion. And if you know your shit, you know Donnie Darko.
I like that. I've never met Donnie Darko, but Searching for Bobby Fischer. That was a movie that like hit me really hard.
Yeah, that's an incredible film.
Like talking about the boy inside, the child, the little girl inside you. I think that's like,
and the expansive mind.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, and like, but then also Bambi. You know,
well, absolutely Bambi.
I mean, also the
Dumbo.
opening scene of
Also
Bambi
Dumbo.
is also Dumbo. I got cartoons.
Yes.
They have so much heart.
Yes.
And
so much pain too.
I think I'm really fascinated with films that grapple with mental health. And I think it's why I was so drawn to your character as well. You know, particularly also with this idea that through our mental health issues and our trauma, we can become really expansive human beings.
Yes.
That are heroic and brave and courageous, and also it's so painful to watch, and it hurts the people that we love. It's time to take out the trash. Aldo and Paolo, they're poison. They're an embarrassment to this company, and everybody knows it.
One of the things that I loved about House of Gucci was that the film has such an operatic style, and it has so many characters surrounding your character with so many different intentions. But in every single scene, I felt like you were totally present. And opera is one of my favorite forms of expression to watch. But to see a performance that stays true to reality in the midst of that was one of the most incredible things about the whole film.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really. You would assume that she was the one who was sort of insane or for all the things that ended up happening, when in fact, because of that, you root for her so clearly to the whole thing, and you understand, and it was just so moving to watch.
Thank you. People don't know this about us, but we met years ago in the lobby of an agency, and here we are now.
Yeah.
And I've now been in some movies. You've been in way more movies than me.
Yeah, you've done some stuff.
I've done some stuff since then. But this film, you know, it has a tone that is sort of specific, and I think in a way never been done in terms of an Italian film made by people from all over the world, but not made by Italians. And I would say that the reality that I think you're speaking to, what I feel so genuinely grateful for, is that you see that I wanted not to tell a singular story.
Yeah.
Meaning I think that the first thing that I thought when I read the script was, oh, okay, they want some, woman to use her body and use her manipulation to get money from this this incredibly wealthy man or family. And the more that I dug through it and dug through her and got to know Ridley Scott, our director, I realized that she was really in love with him. And women are complex creatures. And we're complicated, and it's never one single story. It's many stories. So I really wanted to inject a reality into her that was multifaceted and fractured and broken in a way. Like when I think about her as a character, I think of me taking like little bits of glass from tons of different women and encapsulating them into one character that I'd still believe to truly be her, but because I think insanity is subjective.
I totally agree with you. I like, you're making me think of that moment when she asks him his name and he tells her at the bar.
Yeah.
And what you do with that moment could have been done so many different ways, and it is done in one moment so many different ways. And I just thought about the intention, because that kind of sets off the whole movie, right?
Yeah.
And what could have been the intention of a very sort of cliched idea of, like you were saying, a woman with one intention, only wanting to do this. Oh, I hear his name, and now I know what I want.
I talked about that and studied that moment for a really long time, and Adam and I spoke in depth about it. I was like, okay, when does he fall in love with her in this scene? Does it happen in this scene? And he's like, second I see her, right? And we had this deep dive, and what I really decided for myself was that I won't tell you because I don't want the audience to know. I play secrets, and I don't think the secrets are to be told.
Yes.
There's a reason that I am the way I am in that scene, and it's because explicitly, I certainly didn't want to give it away that she knew exactly who he was, and now she was going to concoct her master plan, because I think women are more complicated than that, and I think that without giving away what I was not, intending to play, 'cause you don't I don't decide I'm going to play something exactly the way that I play it, but I do really study the hell out of a script like a romance, and I break it down into what I believe it to be, and then I throw it all out the window when I get there, and then I just talk to the actor. But going back to Insanity, I want to say about your film, The Guilty, this movie was extremely powerful. And I feel like I've injected a lot of trauma into my work my whole life. I was really moved by your ability to go to the bottom throughout the whole film, and also for there to be an arc to that bottom, and to take dialogue that could have been done in very different ways and really like bite your teeth into it in a way that it most certainly was propelled from someplace real. I really was struck by a true belief that he was in a tremendous amount of pain, and that he was so sad.
Okay, I'm hanging up.
Just out for a drive, sweetie, okay?
Who's that?
Dad.
Is there someone with you? I think the interesting part of that whole film is there is like an entertaining aspect where you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you're with him trying to help this person. But I think it really does speak to mental health. Like, I think the ability to ask for help, which he clearly does not have that ability. I think the world around him says, speaking of like sort of the masculinity in that sense too, the sense of holding up this kind of relationship with his partner and his sergeant and all these things and all these kind of cliches, and he's not able to say, I'm scared. I want to be a good person. I don't know how to be a good person.
Right.
But I think I am somewhere. And in the end, the choice he makes is about, he's assuming something about this woman he's trying to save the whole time. And then that's flipped on him. And he's assuming something about himself the whole time. That he's bad because he feels broken.
Yeah.
And then in the end, he realizes actually he can save himself and so many other people.
Yeah, was that the quote at the beginning of the film? The truth.
The truth shall set you free.
The truth shall set you free. When that first came up, I thought to myself, oh, we're gonna have a really good talk about this because I wanted to relate my experience of the truth in House of Gucci to what I saw in The Guilty. I want to ask you about your process in terms of how you decided to color Joe in a way that he was incredibly dynamic. Sometimes people that are in a like constant dissociative state, are constantly triggered. That could be one-dimensional if it was not you that played this part. And I was watching it, and as someone who's really inspired by the stories of people who suffer from mental health issues, I saw it behind your eyes the whole time.
It's funny you say that. I do wish, when looking back, because of the process, we shot the movie in 11 days.
Wow.
And so, like, in the process, as I look back, and Antoine Fuqua, who directed the film,
Yeah.
we decided 20
Who
pages.
you did Southpaw with.
Yes, yeah. And we did 20 pages a day of the script. And he was like, we're not turning back. You get your shots,
Oh, wow.
and then we go on to the next.
So he was fast. Ridley's fast, too.
Yeah, and we wanted it to be like that,
Yeah, momentum.
Yeah. I remember at like day 3 or 4 going, ooh, I want to go back. And I couldn't, to paint maybe a different angle or a different edge on something. And that was really, to me, a really beautiful thing in watching the final process, because I think I would have liked to push it maybe even farther over into a bit of fooling the audience at the beginning. Yeah, but I mean, we all have
but
our...
Sorry,
No.
I loved it. So I'm sorry.
You have established yourself in music and songwriting and in that world in this extraordinary, mind-boggling way.
Thank you.
And then you've somehow seamlessly been able to like come into the world of storytelling in another way, in another form. And for me, like when I think about acting in movies, I think of it as like fits and starts. Like it's not a song. You don't get, measure after measure after measure and rhythm and a melody. Like you get little moments you have to pull off. I love the musicality of a scene, right? Without any music in it. But I'm just so interested in what it feels like from your point of view. Going into those little moments, you shoot one scene or one take and hitting that. Like, is it a thrill? Like, what is that?
So I have sort of like two ways of answering this. Firstly, I would say that the whole acting process for me, I wanted to be an actress before I wanted to be a singer. And I studied for a really long time. I went to Lee Strasberg. I went to Circle in the Square. I studied Stanislavski method. I studied Lee Strasberg method. I work with Susan Basson, who's my acting teacher now. I worked for months on my accent with Beatrice Peluccia and with Tim Monick.
I love Tim Monick.
Yeah, he's great. But Bea, she was with me on set every day, and she's like one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And I would actually say, as a songwriter, playing a character for me is like living one long song.
Is that why you stayed? Did you stayed in character?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like one long song that lasts for months.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, for like and almost a year or years. For A Star Is Born, it was years for me. And for Patrizia, I dropped her faster because I had to, because she was a killer, and there were some things about the transformation for me psychologically that were really super challenging. And you just said, like, when you go in and you get these snapshots, right?
Yeah.
When I watch the movie, it looks like I'm watching a montage of my life. I don't feel like I'm watching a film.
Totally, yeah.
I think what I love so much about acting since I was a little girl was I was so mercilessly bullied. And I had a really strict upbringing. So acting for me was a way to just totally escape who I was. And I still suffer with that all the time. And I think I've done it my whole career with, taking on the artistic persona of whatever music I'm writing and living inside my art and the sound, and whatever I wear or how I think or how I be is representative of something that I've created. And for films, it's different, but it's not. You know, I remember the scene I did with Jack Houston, Domenico Del Sole, at the school, you know, when he serves me the divorce papers. You know, I studied animals to play her. For that scene, it was the panther. And it was because the panther moves slowly, but then when it kills its prey, it is really violent and it's really ugly. And then after, it cries. And I did that to make sure that, you know, the accent was in my body, the physicality was in my body, so that the dialogue could just fly and I could just talk to Domenico and talk to Jack when we were there. But what I feel in that moment is what she was feeling. The cameras float away. I'm not an actor that really knows where the camera is, which can be a problem sometimes. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's super immersive, as if I'm in the middle of singing a song. And the song just doesn't end until I decide it does.
Don't be such a cretin.
Don't call me a cretin, sweetie.
That's not what I said. I asked you not to be one.
When you're like performing for hundreds of thousands of people, or when you're playing in a small show, or when you're in a scene, how available is your heart? Like when I watched your like Super Bowl performance, I was just blown away by the fact that I felt like you were doing what you described, you know? I don't know if it's possible. Like I try and put myself into your shoes in a performance like that, and I think it's possible if there's a character or place that I can go that feels safe, you know, to protect that part of my heart.
Yeah.
But is it equally available? I'm just wondering if it feels, like the difference in what it feels like. There are a few people who have that.
Between singing and acting.
Or like performing in front of thousands of people and then performing in front of a crew. Like
I'm going to use some acting skills now, and I'm going to do some sense memory. So my sense memory tells me that when I'm on stage, like when I was in Mexico City, when I was a young girl, and I could hear the crowd screaming, and there was like 150,000 people, and I was like 23.
Whoa.
And I just remember thinking to myself, I can feel everybody's heart. And I wish I could share with you mine. And I wish for you to know the pain in my heart so that I can hold space for the pain in yours.
Wow.
Being in Sunday in the Park with George,
Yes.
Stephen Sondheim, one
Yes.
of my favorite musical writers of all time.
Yes, same.
What was that like for you?
I remember coming out on stage. We did this show as a gala performance at City Center in New York City before we brought to Broadway. We didn't know we were going to go to Broadway. And I remember it was like a performance on book, you know. We were like half memorized, and it's like Stephen Sondheim. It was like so complicated. And the character that I play has like just a crazy amount to do. And I remember walking out there for the first time and not being nervous. It was the first time on stage I've ever not been nervous at all. And I then got nervous that I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't actually nervous the whole time. And I think it's because, I do think when you are cloaked and protected by words like that, with a mind like that, with melody like that, and with wordplay and ideas to find, to play like that for months and months and months and months, I'm not going to say anything anywhere articulately, as so many people have said about him and the work that he's done and will continue to, but I like cherish that time like no other time in my life. Other time.
There's nothing like Stephen Sondheim's music.
Nothing.
Talk about playful.
Like puzzles after puzzle.
Absolutely. It's puzzle after puzzle, after maze, after labyrinth.
There's moments where you're in it and you're in like the 80th show and you're like, I feel okay about this. I think I got this. And then, Steve comes in wherever he is, and now he's not here on this earth, but he wasn't with me on that stage. And you go, stay alive, stay awake,
Yeah,
pay
yeah.
attention.
Pay attention.
I got you. I'm smarter than you always. And like, it just always stays alive.
Isn't that beautiful? Did you feel like the music had your back, or that like he had your back? Was he with you when you were working? Because I feel
did
like
like
that.
80% of the work for you. That's the thing that I realized when I got on stage to do musicals, like, is, oh wow, there's no silence. It's so great. You also have like an orchestra with you, so you're not alone, and you have a downbeat, and you know where to go. And so often I had done a monologue, and you're sitting up there with no music, nothing. You're just alone with words, setting your own rhythm, doing anything, and it's sometimes the loneliest place to be. I love that. I mean, there's just nothing like music.
I believe in community and being generative and generous. And when I'm acting, though, the difference is I'm locked in with the actor or actors.
I feel as a fellow actor, I feel your generosity in watching a scene. The thing I've always loved about acting is being able to connect with someone in a space where it's safe to share things that you wouldn't normally be able to share.
I ask for consent a lot, actually. Like I'll be like, is it okay if I touch you? Is it okay if like, when I'm in character, I don't pretend we're not filming.
Right.
I'm still in character, but I'm aware of who's there and what's going on. I mean, I have a relationship with Federico, who does props, and, Darius, who's our DP, Ray, our AD. People are like, why did you keep your accent the whole time? I'm like, can you imagine going in and out of that shit all the time? And I only would get 3 takes.
Oh, wow.
So I had to be ready. The way that I feel safe is just that I feel safe being in pain. Like when I'm there and I'm with the actor and I know the actor, I feel safe I feel safe in art. Like, and I almost think I feel safer with art than I do in life. Yeah. And like, so in a way, when I go in, Ridley Scott, he's the one who would run on set and be like, he would pull me out. I mean, when I did the bathtub scene, when I went under, like they had to yell cut because they were like, get her out of there. But because I was fine. I can hold my breath for a long time. I'm a singer, right? But I feel protected by art. I feel like art has saved me my whole life. Yes. So what makes you feel safe when you're working? What makes you feel like you can make your heart available? And what do you do if the actor doesn't make you feel safe?
I think it's always a risk, right? There has to be a risk for so many things to happen. There also, because of that, there has to be this trust. The trust that this is an imaginary space. A trust that there is pretend, right? I think for me, I've chosen a lot of characters through many years to search through ideas, feelings, things I was afraid of, things that I thought I felt, but I was like, is this normal? Like, can I go here? And that pretend place gave me a safe space. I think it really also can be life-saving, you know? I think expression is life-saving. But then at the same time, I think that over the being able to do it for many years, I've realized that you can also neglect the things in your life because
100%.
you're expressing yourself here and it feels safe, right? And then all of a sudden you realize sometimes you're hit with certain things, like you get injured in a scene, or something happens where it really affects you emotionally. You didn't realize because it was in tune with something else that's going on in your life that you haven't necessarily wanted to deal with.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things about COVID when we were shooting The Guilty was that it was right at the beginning of everything, and everyone was masked. And as an actor, I'm used to being in the pretend. I'm used to being in the place where it feels like, oh, I'm pretty safe, Everyone else is doing real stuff,
Right.
I took off my mask. I was like, oh, whoa, wait a second. I'm the only one not protected in this space in that same way. And I thought, oh, I sort of like the pretend part of it, When reality comes into those spaces, I think it can be thrilling, to be honest. I think it can really be thrilling, and I love playing the edge.
I could cry hearing you say that because I can't tell you how many regrets I have, not about the art, but about life, because of how immersed I get in the work. And the way that I come out of a scene and I can't talk for 6 hours or 6 days, you know, but if I have to talk on camera, like I will, you know, I'll figure it out. But I think that in a way, like as you're speaking, just like to be honest and vulnerable, I think I have a real like instinct to, and this is like my protective survival mechanism because I hide in like art as a way to feel alive. I think that when I, like every time you say pretend, I can like feel my like heart jump out of my chest and go like, no, it's not pretend. It's not pretend. It's real. It's my life.
Oh, wow.
But I know that it's a set. I know it's a script.
I know
it's
exactly.
a director.
I get it.
Like I know, like I know that it's not. But also like I lived that woman's life. Like I know I lived her life, and I know I lived her life because I know that before I went in, I went to whatever place I thought that she was in, and it's almost like a map, right? Like a map inside your body. Your body memorizes life, and it's like pushing on that trigger point and allowing it to be just available so that all that Adam needs to do is like push that button when we're in the scene, and then we go somewhere else and you are present. But because you are present, my body has this reaction to you saying pretend, because I'm like, but I'm present. It's not pretend.
Over the years, for me, I felt like I have all these tools now. But I think for the young actors out there, I think that there's this idea that's perpetuated of just like staying in the reality of it, as opposed to recognizing the joy of it and the play of it and the craft, like honing that thing.
I heal from it because I go, this like thing that hurt me, I'm gonna put it here, and then when the scene's over, I'm like, fuck yeah, like, and I want to relate it to Joe because Joe's character, what I observed watching the film was that he was like afraid of himself by the end, and it was because he was so immersive. There's no piece of me that feels that you were pretending, even if you were, right? You were right there.
I mean, pretend by like setting a context for yourself and saying, "Oh, these aren't my clothes," and this is, you know, those are things that are, you create structure around something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are so many times in roles I played, particularly playing someone who has really existed, playing someone who's actually really done something is a very different experience. I've done that before.
Yeah.
That is very hard on the heart.
Yeah.
Like, I played this incredible guy named Jeff Bowman who lost his legs in the Boston bombings. And there were moments in that movie that I will never forget. Those things stay with you, and it will never come close to the experience of what the character had that you're playing, the real person, went through.
Right.
But holding those feelings are such an interesting journey.
Because you know that, like, you're like, well, it's not me, but I'm trying to get there.
Totally.
And then you feel it, and then you go, God, that person went through that.
I know. They did that.
They did that.
How could they get through that? Or
how could I have done that? I actually, at one point, was like, I can't believe I took this job.
Wow.
We drove past where Maurizio was murdered, and I was on the way to a street to film a scene, and we were on our way to do a different scene, but we drove past, and I looked over, and I thought, did you, like, somebody, he was murdered right there, and you are being paid to play the woman that had him murdered. I mean, I had like this total existential crisis with myself about, why did you make this choice? And it's why I really wanted to tell a woman's story. And, you know, what happens when a woman is disposed of and traumatized, and like what happens when women age, when we age and we lose our looks and we're no longer deemed valuable, and what happens when we're abused since we were younger.
The thing you say about the truth shall set you free. Like Ang Lee once said that we pretend in telling stories to get closer to the truth. I think that for the character that I played, it's this sense of there is no earthly redemption for the character that I played. There's no earthly redemption for yours as well. But the redemption is in telling the truth. Yeah. And that's a spiritual redemption. It's another one. And I think, to me, what I loved about the story in The Guilty is that it's saying, with all these trappings and all these things that we have in our life, or we want, or that we're after, the real thing is being able to be true to oneself and then try and then also say it'll set you free.
Yeah.
It'll give you the things that you want in your life. You're doing that in every scene.
You have a gift, I'm telling you.
Oh, stop. Stop, you're going to make me. You're going to make me cry.
The scene with Jared Leto's character, Paolo, when you're sort of manipulating him into saying, oh, we're going to do your line and all this stuff.
I love how you said sort of.
You're just like really, truly saying to you, I want this to happen for you. I want this to happen
She's
for
like
you.
really gaslighting the fuck out of him.
Yeah,
but she believes she's helping
Yes.
everybody.
And I think that is...
She's gaslighting herself too.
Yes. But in that, you're like razor sharp focused on the present of what you're saying to...
I believed everything she said. When I watched her interviews after he died,
Crazy,
she's
yeah.
a liar.
Like, she was convincing you.
So something I actually used to get to that reality in the scenes, I worked every day on this, and I worked with my acting teacher on it. I always would say to myself, before a scene started, protect your little girl.
I think that's a good, like... I think it's a good word of advice generally for everyone.
Like the
Your
little,
the little...
yeah, it's like people use it in therapy all the time, but like because of like the female story in this movie, I was like, protect the child in me, and
Yes.
and that's what makes it a survival story instead of a story about scandal and greed and manipulation. She's surviving the whole time, which is why when she's talking to Paolo, she's like, this is amazing. She's not lying. She's really not lying. She really thinks she's doing the right thing. And it's why this murder took place. I believe this with all my heart as an Italian woman. Italian-American woman, why any Italian-American woman or Italian woman would insert themselves into a totally male-dominated business is beyond me. And I mean that with love, because, I don't think I would insert myself about, like, what the napkins should look like at my father's restaurant in New York City. It's like there's boundaries. This is Italian-American values. This is Italian values as well.
What's so clear to me is that I think the reason why you're such a wonderful actor is because your intention is always coming from your heart. And so you have to be able to empathize with everyone you play.
I couldn't not love her. I almost find it interesting now that, like, I haven't, like, heard anything from her, because she's alive.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know if she's seen it.
Wow.
I don't know what she thinks about it, but I think it's interesting because everybody around me said to me, I think this might be painful.
Oh my God, yeah.
But I did it for people, not for her. That's why I do what I do. And, like, I didn't do it for in a way I did it for myself, because I think that what happens to women in like, the thing that is patriarchy in this world is, like, patriarchy and capitalism, like, destroy women all the time. Like, just, it ruins us in a way that I think people don't always see. And I think we hide it really well. And there's, like, tools and fashion and hair and makeup and all sorts of things that are invented so that we can hide our pain. And I just saw her and I thought, what happened to you? And then I tried to write it. And because you know what? I'm not actually her.
Well, of
right?
course.
I'm not actually her. And no matter what I do, I'll never actually be her.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, it is a good thing, but I just mean for the purposes of the movie, like, I'm not meaning, like, how close can I get? But does that even matter? Because what I'm trying to say is, I don't think she was born a murderer. I think she became one.
I felt the same way about the character I played. That's the same thing. I think, there but for the grace of God, I think that there's this sense of he followed a path that he thought was the right way to go, and he assumes he knows. And the assumption is the thing that leads him actually to realize that he doesn't.
Emily, I need the color of the car, okay? When I say the right one, say it's fine. Red, blue, black, White.
It's fine.
White.
It was so beautifully done, like, and you carried the entire film the entire time. And I mentioned to you earlier when we were talking off camera that, like, your relationship with people on the other end of the line, like the way that it changed, the way I watched him change, and for what it's worth, the way that it came off to me at the end was that he was like one of the most incredible people I could have possibly imagined, and also a liability. And it leads me to ask you what is a little bit of a hard question, but like, was it hard or intimidating or exciting to play a law enforcement person in 2022?
It was actually 2020.
2020. Yeah. I mean, during that time, like to play a police officer, like what was that decision like for you?
I felt, and Antoine Fuqua and I talked about this a lot. It was essential that, like, this is a fantasy. The story is very clearly a fantasy. It's an expression of something that I don't think I've ever seen, you know? And that there's a hope for, that there is a redemption, and that there is that so many people, particularly in law enforcement, there's no outlet for, you know, help and mental health.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it was about, I don't want to like push it too far into the space because I don't think it's actually saying this, but I do believe in my heart, and part that I think when you talk about the feelings that the character has at the end and how they came up, it was to say, you know, all of the things that were going on in particularly America, but around the world at that moment, they were all in that space, you know? And so for me, actually, it was really important, you know, to say, this is very clearly not what's happening. There isn't an admittance of guilt, you know, and there isn't an understanding that there is so much pain, and that it's okay to be in pain, and that it's okay to, but there's no outlet, right?
That is very beautiful and very brave. There's a lot of racial unrest in this country during that time, and for you to take that on that role, and for it to end the way that it does was extremely powerful. Because I was when the movie first started, I was like, here we go. Because it is a fantasy, but then there's the context of just like there's that I'm watching a film, and then I also know real life, and I felt that your heart was in there.
I mean, well, it's also Antoine's, because he and I are so close. And when I sent him the script, he said, in literally 12 hours, I want to do this movie.
Yeah.
And then I remember really clearly when we were finishing the film, and we were talking about credits. And, you know, everyone's contract and credits and whose name goes, blah, blah. And when a director wants to change the credits, you know, everyone gets a phone call and says, I want to put the credit at the beginning of the movie or the end of the movie, you know. And he said, I want it to say the guilty at the beginning, and I want it to say guilty and the guilty at the end. I want to say it over and over again. And I want to say that it's all about the truth. And I was like,
wow.
You put that word as many times as you wanted in the movie. I have, you know, that's the name of the movie.
Playing a police officer that did what your character did in these times was a very brave choice, and it was beautifully done. I think it will inspire a lot of people, and I think it beckons for healing.
I felt that through the whole
time.
Yeah, that there's so much work to be done. And like whatever way in which you can express yourself to help do that work, whatever way. That's what I try and do. It's what I feel like we talk about characters. It's the place I feel I can do the best work, and there's just so much more to be done.
Okay, Emily, I'm going to ask you yes or no questions, okay? You know the person you're with?
Uh-huh.
Have you been abducted?
Yes.
What Patrizia goes through happens in there's moments throughout the film that are like and I found them in the script, and I was like, this is where she's traumatized, and this is where she's triggered, and this is when the PTSD starts. When I watched your film, I was like, oh, so there's a crisis the entire movie, right? So it's like for me, the crisis has happened at like specific points. You're just the whole movie is trauma. The whole movie is a crisis, and
It was 12 days of super, like those probably 12 moments you picked out in that over that course of storytelling. It was just, it was like 12 just intense days of that.
yeah, I mean, I didn't see the guy get a cup of coffee and like have a minute to himself. Like,
That's true.
I remember I noticed that he had a glass of water next to him that he had not drank.
Yes, that's true too, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, he didn't drink his water.
He
He's
didn't
like,
get a
no, he's not
chance
even
to.
hydrating.
Yeah.
No,
That's not a good thing.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah,
I'm saying
I know.
I noticed. I noticed.
Yes,
like it was
thank
as a choice. Like
Yeah.
it was a good choice. But I have to hand it to you because I don't think people realize because they might see you do like a movie where you're in one place doing what seems like one whole thing, almost like a play. When I watched it, I was like, oh, it was like that. So he had to do that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And make it different and make it dynamic and make it real. And it was.
Speaking from someone who's tried to do this pretty much their whole life, to watch you do it so effortlessly, even though I know there's a lot of effort put into it, is so impressive. So impressive.
Thank you. But I think that the effortless part or making it look effortless, like I feel that way about watching you, and I think a lot of that has to do with preparation. Like when I did American Horror
yeah.
Story, I'd get that script. I basically got the script 30 minutes before.
Crazy.
I mean, I had some idea of what we were going to do, but then you'd be doing one scene from episode 3, and then
Right.
they'd go, actually, so the next scene's going to be from episode 7, and it's now this scene, and this is going to happen, and we would have to change everything. And I remember I had to pivot really fast.
Did you enjoy that?
I loved playing the Countess, but I think I loved playing her because her ultimate trauma was that she was essentially like guaranteed to almost live forever and live forever young. And I made the choice very early on that I said to myself, violence relaxes me. I remember I loved a scene I did with Chloe Sevigny. She pulls a gun on me, and I don't know why, but she pulled that gun on me, and I just went like this. And I looked at her, and I remember after we shot that scene, she was like, we were like laughing about it, but it's like I don't ever want to play the same thing, but I just think it's interesting when we get to know the people that we're playing.
Yeah.
That stuff just kind of makes its way into your body, and then you can be free, like you said.
Yes.
Yes. And be free and pretend. That felt more like pretend for me, but I lived like her. It's bad. I mean, I didn't do what she did, but I dressed like her all the time. I listened to the same music all the time that put me in her headspace. And on set they give you fake cocaine and fake booze, but like while you're doing it, you're like, is it real? I don't know. It's just there's like you put yourself in that place, and I look up to you a lot because we were talking today off camera and on, and just hearing the way that you talk about having your tools with you now so that you can navigate your imagination. I really long for that in a way. I think I'm getting better at it, but I really long for that.
You need them. You need those boundaries and safety, and then it's like,
and that's a positive message for young people to hear, to keep yourself safe.
Learn, dig in, learn, and then even more is out there. One of the best lines I've probably ever heard in terms of this thing is like, freedom is on the other side of discipline, and you need that craft to protect you in the best possible way, because we're here to try and entertain, and also we're here to tell other people's stories.
Yep.
And so in order to do that, you need to come equipped.
Yeah, the discipline will set you free for sure.
Yeah.